Welcome to another episode. We are here at the AWS She Builds Tech Skills Show. My name is Tamar Gagliardi. I'm a Senior Solutions Architect at AWS, and I will be one of the hosts for today. I'm joining you from San Diego, California. I'm very curious as to where everybody's joining from, so feel free to use the chat to engage with us, post where you're joining. I'm also co-hosting with Candice. Candice, welcome to the show.
Hey, good to be here. Thanks for joining and doing a quick little intro. I am joining from St. Paul, Minnesota, so not quite probably as beautiful as San Diego, but still nice. Happy to be on the show again, and I am a member of the AWS She Builds Tech Skills core team, and I'm also a senior specialist solutions architect on the Q developer team. So I just took this job earlier this year, and it's a super fun, fast changing area that I'm really excited to be part of.
You get to develop a lot with Q, which we'll be talking about that today. We also, if you are looking to subscribe, we have so many other shows we've done in the past. Feel free to jump onto our YouTube channel, the AWS She Builds Tech Skills. You can subscribe. And for today's show also, it'll be a follow-up from the previous episode. So last week's episode, which I will be sharing the link here as well. You can find it on YouTube. We have the QR code on the top as well. If it's quicker for you to quickly scan it and jump into that episode. We talked about Amazon Q Developer for those that are new to generative AI or generative AI assistance. Q Developer is an AWS service under the AI and ML stack umbrella. It is an AI-powered assistant. It helps developers build and integrates with your IDE, have it be VS Code, JetBrains, whichever is the one that you're most passionate about using. We also will be talking today, Candice, about design-driven development. So I know you have your own thoughts on what that is. If you want to share with the audience, I'll do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And would love to hear from the audience too if they know a little bit about some of these terms. Hello to Kenya. Hi. Um, so I like to talk a bit about design-driven development or spec-driven development. It's kind of used interchangeably, and it's a bit of a comparison with vibe coding. So we've heard of vibe coding. I kind of wish I had gotten this picture that I saw on LinkedIn where it was like a little stick figure who had been vibe coding too far through a tree, and then the tree is like ready to fall on him. So within vibe coding, it's very much about just like, let's go and like, let's see what happens. And you can build some cool stuff. And sometimes it's not exactly what you meant to build. So with spec driven development or design driven development, that's much more about kind of writing out what you want to happen, writing out the specifications, where you're really sure about what you're going to build, and making sure that you stay in control rather than just letting the tool go crazy. So
Yeah.
both are fine, but I prefer, if you're doing production, you might want to do some specs. Yeah.
I was going to say, I know that in the past episode, we built a library where you can look at the different books, and it reminded me of what you just described of a little stick figure of choose your own adventure, but maybe you got too far and you choose your own adventure and there's no way of going back. So having that designed spec document, which is not only the functionality, but it's also the design. We're going to be jumping into making the front end or the UI UX experience a little better today. So that can also be included in that document of if you have a specific design pattern that your company or the products that you're designing should follow on the color theme, on how the buttons are designed, or any of those. All of that could be written before you even jump into designing your code, right?
Exactly. And it's just going to get you closer to where you want to be in the end if you take a few minutes to plan it out at the beginning. So
exciting. Okay. So we did an intro on what we'll do today. Maybe we'll jump into designing a little bit or recapping where we left last time.
Sure, let's do that. So if you watched last episode, I feel like I went a little bit further into vibe coding rather than like spec-driven design. I was just like, let's build out this front end. I practiced it once over the weekend and it worked. And so then I was overly optimistic, got into the show and it didn't quite work. So the Twitch show did not end happy. And then I recorded the final part of it, the last 5 minutes. I needed 5 more minutes, added it onto the end, and you can see it there on YouTube with the UI working in the end. And so what I want to do now is just actually show you what that looks like, and then we'll start to play with Q and kind of go from there, see what new features we can add. So here we go. Here is the simple application that we had last week. So this application actually it started as a demo application that I've done as part of my job. It was just a backend written in Java. Q actually wrote it for me. And then I decided last week to come on Twitch, when we're coming back onto Twitch, to say, well, let's build a front end for it. So this is what it looks like now. It's not awful, but it's not like beautiful. Oh, great. It failed to fetch again. We're going to, I'm a little bit nervous already. This is what happened last time, and what got me super stuck is that my front end and my back end weren't touching each other. They weren't talking properly. So we'll see how this goes. Everyone, remember to breathe. I'm mostly talking to myself. What we're going to do first is use Q to make sure that I even built this the right way and that we're actually ready to go. So here's my code, just so that you know there's nothing up my sleeve. It's right here. It's just a little bit of Java code with like the 3 layers and all of these sorts of things. A pretty simple application. And we'll start up the Q chat. I might make it all the way big so that we can see it really well. We'll start up the CLI right now and just kind of jump into it and see if we can start to figure out what's actually going on here.
Are you able to make the that screen a little bigger? Zoom again?
I am, and I'm realizing that I'm not quite in the right folder either. So let me pop this down. Let's just do it from in here. Yeah, I can make this one bigger. Let me change my folder really quick. Yeah.
Okay, and while you do that, again, to recap from the previous session, we're designing an application. It's a library. There's a number of books. There was a database that was built with a list of books, and all of that was designed through prompts. It wasn't that from scratch. We designed this hundreds of lines of code, so it shows also the power of being able through prompt building the code. And now we're just adding additional functionality and making the UI experience smoother.
Exactly. Perfect. And so if anybody has any comments about the UI or things like that, once we get this bug solved, feel free to drop those in and we'll see if we can address those as well. Let's just start easy. Can you tell me about this application? So again, we talked a little bit about it, but it's always nice whenever you're new to an application to just kind of jump in and ask Q to explain it to you as well. So you'll see that I've done several different pieces of demos throughout the use of this over the last few months. So here's some of the key features. It's Spring Boot. We've got GitHub integration, which is a very neat feature that's currently in preview, Q and GitHub integration. I really like that one. We're not going to see it today, but there's a few blogs on that you can go and check out. It's very simple to set up. Let's build this and see it running locally.
And right now you're in the repo of where you have all the code, correct?
Exactly. Good call. That's why I stopped for just 1 second, because I realized I was still in my top level folder. So I wanted to make sure that I started Q in the spot where I wanted Q to work. So now he's kind of going through and reading a little bit more about it, checking that POM file. I used to write Java code a very long time ago. Did you ever do it, Tamara?
Same here. It was very painful. Actually, my senior year project was a checkout, which looked nothing like what you just shared right now because UI UX was the last thing we thought about, and it took me months to develop. So
it's hard. So months to develop, and Q built this in a couple of hours. I mean, we probably spent 3 or maybe 4 hours on it together by now, but not months.
Not months.
Okay. Good. So now we are building this. Okay. Now let's see. Let's hope that I was just kind of holding on to something old. Am I in the right port? 8080. Let's see. I think so. Anyways, okay, let's just refresh it and see how it goes. Show all. Okay, good.
Excellent.
Oh my gosh, first test passed. Okay. So let's look just a little bit more at this now that we know that it's working. I clicked, we've got this pretty simple search media option. You can search by the title. You can just show all of them. That's what I just did. And then you can also check out and return items. And you'll see I have a huge library here with five items in my library. We can also, now that we know what's in here, let's see if this one works properly. So To Kill a Mockingbird, this is probably my favorite of the ones listed here. Sweet, it's available. So now if we're gonna check out an item, like I said, this is one of my favorites of these that are listed here. You'll see already this isn't super user-friendly. Like it works and it's got some nice colors. I like the colors. But you have to check out the item using an ID. And then also, I can't put in my name here. It also is expecting a number. And so this is what it looks like now. Let's check it out.
And if we think about the experience right now that you had, might not be the most intuitive or friendly, right? So we're looking at changing this UX experience, which brings me to the audience of maybe what is an issue you've currently be seeing or that you've saw in the past. If you want to share with us, we can pop it up and as Candice continues to improve the design, we're curious on your end too. If you can drop your thoughts in the chat of what are some of those UX issues you've seen in past applications.
UX it's quite the art, right? There is some science to it, and there are certain things that you should and should not do. One thing you should not do is have, like, imagine my mom, if she had to check out a book with a number, she would throw her computer.
Yes. Thinking of who all those end users would be and how they would interact with the application. We do have a comment and question that came in on whether we're defaulting to a specific style sheet or how would we go about changing this, or if there was an HTML layout we created. And thank you so much, Cloud Surfer 22.
So let's just ask Q. Let's ask Q, because I did this last week and it was a holiday weekend, at least here in the US. And so I'm pretty positive we made an HTML page, but I don't remember.
And again, if you were to be a new developer coming in, you were assigned to make this change, it would be maybe quicker to ask Q and provide that information.
Also note what I just said. Sometimes natural language is great, but I said, is there a design file? And I should have said a style sheet rather than design file. We have some overloaded terms here. So we may need to go back and ask again. But this is nice. These are some of the documents that I've used before for other demos for other demos that I've done. And so at least these are kind of like design files for other features that we would do. I actually meant a style sheet or HTML. Like, how is this displayed? Also, let me know if my screen is big enough now.
I think it's pretty good on my end.
Okay.
The audience, feel free to also comment. We do have 2 other questions and comments in the queue after this one.
Awesome. There we go. Okay, so CSS and JavaScript. So let's go ahead. Great, I found some front-end files. Let's examine them to see how this is currently implemented. So again, this is kind of a baby project, like a little demo project. And so I could have clicked through and probably found the things, but this is a live demo and I'm trying to show some of the power of Q. And who knows if I actually would have found it. So
which is we're looking at those files. One of the other questions is what we're building today, which we are following up from the previous episode. It's a library if you have different books and you want to search through them and check out the libraries or purchase them. That's the application we'll be enhancing on the UI. Candice, I'll pass it back to you.
Awesome. Super appreciate the questions too. Keep us honest, make sure that you're following along and all of those sorts of things. So I opened up the files. We have a CSS and great, and we can read it. So we have a CSS and an HTML and a simple JavaScript front end page. So here's where we can start to see the box shadow and the colors and things like that. So this is where I would expect us to make some of those like stylistic sort of changes. One thing that's interesting, I didn't write this, I didn't think about this until just now. Are you familiar with WCAG, Website Compliance Accessibility Guidelines?
Yes, I was gonna mention that's very important in your designs as well, but if you want to explain a little more and why that's important.
Yeah, I think it's a really important thing, and it's actually becoming regulated, or there was just a regulation passed in the EU so that all of your applications have to be WCAG compliant. So this is a very important thing. But with WCAG, it checks for enough contrast in your screen, and does it work with like keyboard as well as mouse input. So it's to help people with visual and audio and other impairments, even like physical impairments, so that they can use your application better. So what I want to do, I think, I'm open to suggestions, but we're definitely doing this kind of on the fly. I think let's add a feature so that we can see it working here. Let's not have to use IDs. And then if there's time, let's make sure that we're WCAG compliant. Does that sound fun?
I like it.
Okay.
Let's move forward with it.
Awesome. Okay. So Q now understands it's a very vanilla HTML, CSS, and some high-level information. Great. And then we can update the front end, like I said, by updating the styles.css. That's going to have our like button controls and colors and things like that. If we wanted to add a whole new section, like if we were going to add like a user login or a dashboard or something, then we would want to add that in the HTML file. And then the simple app.js is actually the interaction piece of the front end to the back end. So there's the example updates.
And there was another comment also that came in terms of maybe the user might have the IDs. I think it depends also on how you expect the end user to interact, whether the ID is the name of the book in this case. It could be anything on your application. But I agree, it depends on how you foresee that end user leveraging the application, and then you can write those requirements.
Yeah. Knowing the IDs. What else did I say? We want to check out without IDs. One other thing in WCAG. What did I say?
The colors schemes.
Okay.
What is that? So you're typing the prompt, let's make it a better user experience overall. It would be nice to check out without knowing the IDs. Should we specify knowing the names or just not knowing the IDs and see what happens?
Let's see this.
Let's see what happens.
What I want to do is make a plan. So after I tell them the couple of things that we want to do, I'm going to say, don't do anything. Let's make a plan. And then we have that spec file or design file that we can go back.
That we can feed in.
Yes.
And let's make sure this is compliant with WCAG.
Perfect. Let's make a plan first. Don't just jump into coding. Okay, oops, I also should have this bigger so that we can see it properly.
Excellent. We're having somebody joining us also from India. Thanks for joining.
Yeah. That's late, I think, right? That's like midnight or so.
I believe
I-
so. I'm pretty bad with my time zones.
Yeah.
I have them all saved on my phone.
Okay.
As we're going through that, I know that we talked about the experience of code vibing versus what we're intending to show today on having a more spec-driven or design-driven approach. I'm curious from the audience as well, how familiar are you with code vibing, maybe from 1 to 10, and what has been your experience of more a spec-driven design?
Yes. I know that we've all got some. If you've played with Q or any of the coding assistants, you have to have horror stories that led to pro tips. So we'd love to hear what you're willing to share.
We've been sharing some of them right now as our prompts might be not following specific criteria that we thought in our brains but didn't communicate correctly.
Exactly. So this is a lot of stuff that he's suggesting here. I'm going to make sure that he knows that we have like 45 minutes. Okay. Let's
Yes.
see what we can do in 45 minutes. Is that how long we have? Let's say 30 minutes. We're doing a live demo queue. Can you write this plan in Markdown? Cool. So just so that he knows, so last time, if you want to see my horror story, it's live and now recorded for all time. Not really, I guess we could take it down. But that is there and you can see my horror story. I got so flustered, I wasn't following my own process. I should have stopped with Q and been more systematic and like followed through. But when you let him know that you're doing a live demo or you only have so much time, it's almost like Q empathizes or sympathize. I don't know. There's something where Q understands that this is a tight timeline. He's like, oh, I'm so sorry. Let's see if we can get this working. So it's pretty impressive, I think, when you start to tell him too how much time we have to do something. Great. Deliver visible improvements. So here's our UX improvement demo plan. And you'll see now that he's writing a markdown file. So this is really nice when you have this markdown file. This goes back to context management. So all of these large language models and coding assistants have a certain context window. Within the QCLI, it's 200,000 tokens, which is pretty big, but you'll run out of that in my experience, in about 2 hours of coding with him. So if you have this file that has your plan in it, you can say, look, this is what we are working on. Go check the code and see how far through we got this. So this is another one of those best practices that's going to help you manage the history and the context and things like that. And if there's any other questions about context, we can talk about those as well.
There's a couple of comments that came in, and he did confirm that it's 10:21 local time in India. But it also mentioned that he started with Amazon Q Developer and VS Code as well as QCLI. So
I love the CLI. Like the IDE plugins are great. They're good. Not like putting any shade that way, but the CLI is super fast.
Yes, I agree.
It only talks to one model as opposed to the IDE plugins where it hits Bedrock and then chooses the best model for the job based on what you're trying to do. The CLI just uses Claude, and I can actually show you how you can change which model it is using, which specific version of Claude, after he's done thinking. We're still going. Okay.
And then talking about context,
Yes.
another one of the audience also said that they're leveraging QCLI. They were facing a couple of challenges And when I'm in a long conversation, I think goes back to the tokens that you were just talking about, right, Candice?
Yeah,
And the
exactly.
context overflowing.
Yeah, this is I haven't seen it says cannot compact. But I can talk about a couple of things that you can do like before it gets to this. She's thinking for a really long time. Okay. Oh, it's because she's creating a new version of the app. Okay. So I'm going to come back to this in just one second so that we can make sure that something actually builds. This is a long file, and that's why it took it so long. But I love talking about context. I'm not ignoring that one at all. So this actually would be a potential example of when I might use the /dev agent, because you can actually see the differences side by side as opposed to the CLI. He's creating a whole new file for us so that we're not overwriting our old one, which is nice. But 500 lines of code is kind of a lot to look through all at one time. We could open up that original app file and kind of look through it. But you can see here he's got some initialized accessibility, which is great. Announce to screen reader. So these are some of those WCAG guidelines that we need to make sure that we have in our application. So that's good to see.
And again, it goes back to how quick it's able to suggest and make those changes compared to in the past. I remember when new compliances will come out, we would have to manually go and look at all the files, figure out all the requirements and make the changes. And it would take, weeks.
Yeah.
Now
And
it takes you a few minutes.
yeah, Q just knows what they are. You can say, do you know about the European thing, I think is EAA? And you can say, do you know about EAA? And he's like, yep, I do. It goes into effect on blah, blah. And this is what you have to have in WCAG. So it's really nice that this somehow is like Q already knows about it. So that's really great. Okay, so let's let him keep talking for a second. Let me go back to that question about the long conversation building. So a thing that you want to do whenever you're working within the CLI is keep an eye on your usage. You can do a /usage here in the terminal, which shows you a nice little bar chart of how many tokens you've used so far. I'm just going to say yes because this is just the HTML. Who cares? So that can kind of give you an indication when you get to maybe like 80% or so. And then there's also a piece of functionality that's called /save and /load. So along with having your implementation plan, like your design that you're going after, it's a good idea to save your context sometimes. You just save it to a JSON file in your folder or in your code base, and then you can load it back up. And so the cannot compact does make me nervous. I don't really know what's happening there. But if you do this maybe on a regular basis, the save and load, then at least you don't lose as much of your history. And what I typically do is I do a /compact, which gives you a summary of your context, /save file name, and then /load it back up. So you also can log an issue directly from the CLI with a /issue command. So the next time it does cannot compact and throws up, I would recommend that you log an issue. I haven't seen that yet. So hopefully that helps. Oh yeah, Bhavesh, I'm guessing is how you say your name. He's got some good best practices there. Those are great.
Yeah, one task per conversation or avoiding large file dumps, reference specific code sections only, and all of this going back to that error that we were seeing on context overflowing, or use separate sessions for different projects.
All of these things. Those are really good ways to do it. And then after we see this go through, I'm going to show you that /usage so that we can see what that looks like right now. I love this too. He's going back and creating docs for us. Like as developers, I'm speaking on behalf of all of us, and maybe that's not nice, but as developers, we don't like docs and we don't like writing tests, right? Probably. So
no, it's the opposite. Now I'm having also the CLI doing all of that.
Please update my accessibility features in this UX improvements README. Thank you, Q. Thank you. So that's super nice. I like that he also created, also the pronouns of Q. Q prefers it. I say he, she, they, we, it. I say all of them. But if you ask it, it prefers it. So just a note, I guess. Okay, so this now we have the changes. We know how to push those out. We have docs. This is great. Before we go do that though, I just want to follow up a little bit more on this /usage. So we've been together now for 30 minutes, probably talking with Q for 20, and we've used almost 15% of our context window. And you can see where they actually go through. And then the /compact replaces all 29,000 of those tokens with a summary that's probably 10% of the size. Let's just do that.
And then rerun usage to see.
Yes. Yeah, just to see how much it zips that down. So this is going down, creating our summary. Great. And then just really quickly /usage. And now you can see we're at less than 2%. So, Mr. Web Developer or person web developer is asking about memorizing. You do not have to memorize. You do a quick little /help, and Q is going to help you remember all of them right here. So actually this looks different than it did last week, which I think is fine. It's totally fine. It just looks different. So you do need to kind of keep an eye on it. It changes from time to time. I don't see the /model. Oh, there it is. I don't have any MCP servers loaded. We're not going to talk about that today, but in a couple of weeks, at the end of the month, we're going to have some people come on they are some of the authors of the AWS MCP servers. So we'll go deeper into MCP later, but you can also change your model if you want to. 3.7 is the default. I like 4 sometimes. So hopefully that helps. Okay.
And to recap for those that joined just now, I saw that there were a few people that joined. Again, we're going back from the previous episode where we built front end and back end application, which is for books. There was a database that was created with a number of books. And then the front end, we're looking at enhancing it now, live coding, looking at addressing some of those requirements at the moment, also implementing more of a spec designed approach instead of code vibing. And we are troubleshooting as we go.
Yeah, I think he told me, again, I'm trying to do too many things at one time, but he told me how to do these changes and I didn't actually run. See, I didn't run any of them. I think it's in that, the script that he made, it made, and we didn't actually run it. So
yeah, we've been going back and forth with some of the messages.
yeah. There. Ooh. Good.
Nice. Okay. Excellent.
So it's looking better.
I did change the color scheme. And then the other thing, before we had to search by number. So each book was associated with a specific number. Now you have a drop down, right?
Yeah, it looks like I don't have users in there, but that's pretty good. Oh, we failed to fetch users. That's okay. Not so bad.
It's because we didn't have users. It added users.
It probably right. So we can just kind of give this error over to
Does show all still work?
Ooh,
to show all the assets?
Yes.
Okay. We still have all the books there.
Yeah. The covers aren't showing.
But yeah.
I definitely did not find those. Okay, so let's kill that. Okay, This looks good.
And as you're typing, this looks good, but we're getting a 404 on get user command. Do we have users saved? What else could be going on?
Cool.
So it provides, yeah, I guess a context on what 404 means.
Right. Which is helpful, I think. So, we all know 404 just means not found. But it could be from the endpoint or the data. So I also like to use Q to help me learn new things. I mean, I knew this one right now, but like going from CloudFormation to Terraform, I used Q to kind of help me understand the differences there. You can have Q look at a CloudFormation and create Terraform or CDK or whatever else. So that was a way that I learned a bit more.
And you can even, as you prompted, also specify like explain in detail the changes, and it'll be a little more verbose. We also had a question that came in. How do we create the context file?
There actually is no specific context file. Context is like, think of it as the front part of your brain. How many things can you keep in your brain? Me, 3 at most. Not slight exaggeration, but 3 things. So you don't have to create an actual file. That's just what Q kind of keeps in the front part of his brain. You can specifically add things to the context, though, which I can show you after we try to resolve this issue as well. 6 things in your brain. Schizophrenic web developer is twice as good as me.
Yeah. It's the next model level.
Yeah.
And then there was also a comment on what we were showing on the UI, how it added an alt tag.
Yay. Which is also really good, part of WCAG compliance. So I went right over that. Okay, so allegedly, we have a successful build. I say allegedly, like I am so scorned from last week. It like hurt my feelings so bad. Q would be like, "This is a bulletproof solution." I'm like, "Girl, y'all, who are you?" No, it's not.
Going back to those horror stories that tough lessons to learn.
Exactly.
Okay, so we have a summary then. You're showing a summary of the fix.
Yes. And let's just steal this and I'll put it in a terminal in VS Code. Oops. So give me a terminal.
Now we know which ID of preference is yours.
Yes, very much. I love VS Code. Oh man, that was kind of crazy. Can I just clear that? Great. I love VS Code. I love the extensions that it has available in there. It's just where I prefer to work. And it's so, I don't have a specific language. I don't write code. I mean, I write code professionally, but it's like demo prototype code. So it's not like I need to use Eclipse or something like that that works really well with Java as an example.
Mm-hmm.
Any others have a favorite IDE?
This is asking a little more about your VS Code setup. Do you have a specific theme?
I don't know. It's dark mode. I don't know for sure. Maybe Q can help us find out. There we go. So this still works. That is great. Woo!
Oh, and added users. Great.
Okay, so let's select a media item.
We'll fix the covers later.
Yeah. One thing at a time. Otherwise, my brain gets overloaded, and Q gets confused too. Back to that really good, those pro tips from, what was his name from India?
I'll pull them back in. Yeah.
One thing at a time. One task per conversation. So we're working on one thing. We can go through and work on the covers next. I'm not really even sure if we can make that work here without going and finding them. Might see about something else working there. So
Okay,
great.
so it says that the item checked out successfully.
Yeah, not super user friendly. And if I was visually impaired or talking too much, I might miss that banner pop up. So that could be another thing that we could add is making this a little bit more obvious when something is actually checked out. Also, the return item is still expecting an ID. So I don't love those things, and I can't really tell what happens here unless I go back to show all.
So there's a few things in terms of improving, but at least, like you said, one step at a time. We took one item that we wanted to improve. There's also a question that came in. We were talking about tests earlier, whether we liked to write them or not. That came in regarding tests. If AWS or Amazon Q creates unit tests to improve the code quality.
It does. In fact, I have them. Oh, wait. So these tests, or just this directory, was created with the hopes of creating those unit tests. And so we can either have the CLI say, go create my tests, or let me show you how that works. Here's some new, let's do a service. So here's one of our new files. And what we're gonna do, I'm switching gears just a little bit now. We're gonna use the IDE, like the plugin version of it rather than the CLI, just so I can show you different parts of it. So this is recently changed in the last couple of weeks. You need to play with this every single week or you're gonna be behind. You can choose your model here, and this is kind of agentic chat, which kind of mimics how we've been talking with Q in the CLI. You can pin a certain context. So if I wanted to say, I wanted to have our plan. What did we call our plan? I don't know. I'll come back and find that here in just 1 second. I'll find our plan that we created. This one. So let's do this just really quick and make sure that this is going to stay in our context. So we add the file. I still don't see it, but we can go like this. And so now it'll stay there. So now this file right here is going to stay in our context. And then when we create a test, where was I again? In here.
And that's important going back to for QoS, you're adding this prompts, having the context related to that specific file, which in this case, you're pinning it to the design, right?
Exactly. So that it remembers what we're doing, why we're doing it, and things like that. And then answering the question that's up there right now, hopefully you can see this here. I called /test. There's certain, I believe we call these agents. I can show you the other ones whenever this one starts going. You can have it create a unit test for all the methods in this folder or this file that we have open. And then he'll go through and actually create those unit tests for us so that we don't have to do that. You can also do it, you can highlight a certain method and tell it to create create tests for you that way. So there's a lot of different ways of asking it to do that. This does take a while. So again, to the earlier point, the CLI is super fast. It would just spit those out probably in like 30 seconds. This one will it didn't take that long.
I'm
eating my words.
Proving you wrong.
Great, good job. You'll see that he's creating these unit tests, and these are all the methods that he's created now. I mentioned earlier, sometimes I like to use the /dev agent because it gives you more of this diff. If you're working with a really large file, you want to be able to see the before and after. At least I want to see the before and after so that I can better understand what's going on. So we can click in here. Oh, this whole file is new. So this one is not as exciting because it created a whole new file, duh. But you can see normally if they're just adding to the file, you can see like green lines or red where they've taken things out. You can also say, I like this or I don't like XYZ that you did. We're just going to say that this is good because some tests are better than no tests. So we can accept this right here. You're getting close to when we wanted to be done here. We can definitely keep on going. Do we have other good questions? Let's see.
We have a test for this project. We don't need to write automated tests. We can do manual testing.
Well, you would think this would be thrown away in a few days, but I have kept this for so long. I think this is one of my oldest demo projects, which is why you see things like a late fee implementation plan, a demo script. This is for something else entirely. How do I test just the API? But yeah, if it is just a play application, just throw it away. It's not that big of a deal. But I do love that feature. Oh, go ahead.
No, I was going to mention, I think part of what we were mentioning earlier too, the idea of the difference between vibe coding versus having a spec or a document where you have, in this case, we're just looking at UI UX, but you can have security in there as well, which I know there's a great talk from Reinforce. Reinforce just happened 2025. For those that are not familiar, Reinforce is AWS security focus conference. And in this talk, if you're interested, we will link the video here, or the name is Amazon Q Developer at Reinforce. But it walks you through, if you wanted to do it enterprise grade and you have a security team that has specific requirements on both which ports to use, maybe which services you shouldn't be using, you're able to use all that information from the security specs from the team to make sure that as you're designing your application and as you're also running those tests that are in alignment with the requirements from that enterprise grade product.
Yeah. And while you were talking about that and that was brought up, I love the /review agent. This is one that I think that we should use more of. I was a DevOps engineer. Security is foundational at AWS, but I just ran a /review and then it looked through my entire code base and look, I have 15 critical issues. And so it lists all of those for you. You can click on it and see where this actually happens. You can also view it from there. You can ignore it. I love this part. Look, this little wrench, generate a fix. And so it might be a little bit hard to read. I think it's kind of okay. So it explains why this is a bad thing, why this is such a bad issue. The CWE that it's actually tied to, where you can also go to the website, learn more about it. And then it is going to, yeah, I definitely don't have enough landscape here. It's actually going through and creating a suggested fix. So we can open up that diff so that maybe we can see it a little bit better. Oops. But you can see here that now they're checking. I think that's what's actually happening. They're actually accepting or checking the input before it happens. So this is a way that you can make your code better without even having to try that hard. So we'll accept that fix and say thanks. So here's a quick Papa Smurf of Death. I love that name. The pricing for Amazon Q is you can get started for free. You can start with a builder ID, get started for free. There are limitations for how much you can use it and that sort of thing. And then when you go to the professional level, it's only $19 a month. So it's on par with the rest and free to get started. So just give it a try is what I would say. Let's see. Anything else? Maybe we should try to wrap in 5 minutes, or should we keep going? What do you want to do tomorrow?
I think from the goal that we had of addressing the design criteria of how we can leverage Q, and changing the design, making sure now it's compliant, changing from having to enter a long number to now being able to have a drop down. And we also added users, which wasn't part of our original design, but that happened.
Right.
I think we're pretty good. Is there anything else maybe on your end, Candice, that you wanted to add? Maybe a recap on some of the features that we covered?
Oh, that's a good idea. And that's what we can have Q here do for us. So again, to the point about managing your context and the importance of that implementation plan, I like it whenever my implementation plan has like check marks by it, because I'm a bit of a visual person. Because then Q will go through and create check marks by each of the things that it completes as it goes through. We did a thing where we summarized the context, and so I don't know that was actually there's those beautiful check marks. I love those. They make me feel so.
And the prompt that you provided was, what were the things? Where is it?
What have we done in the plan? Can you update our doc? So pretty generic. I typically am pretty generic in the way, the language that I use and things like that, and then I fix it if we need to. But I love this. And
having an accomplishment list and being able to report back. Sometimes we do so much work throughout the day, and now it's able to capitalize on that.
Exactly. Another thing that we did last time, okay, we really are going to be done soon. I can keep going all day. This is my day job. I talk about this all day. I just can keep going, but we will stop soon. Another thing that I think is cool is that you can use Q just for anything. You could say, great, I need a summary for my boss and the VP of what we changed. And it'll actually create a like a VP level summary for you as well. We don't necessarily have to see that. But it's one of those things you can just kind of talk to it. I use Q to come up with my demo plans for most of my customers if I don't already have a demo code base ready to go. So you can, instead of Googling, you can use Q and get closer to the answer.
But yeah, those executive summaries or even marketing or product summaries are key for those reviews. But I think, yeah, we can create an executive summary of what we did. Let's see it in action.
Exactly. Boom. It's a little long. Maybe their executive, Q's executive definitely reads a lot. Fine.
I was like, usually executives only want one paragraph, and that's as much as they're going to read.
Yes. So this is pretty long. And that is another thing. You can be like, keep this under 100 words. Nobody's reading more than 100 words. But anyways, so hopefully you learned something. Hopefully our viewers learned something today. I feel redeemed now after last week. Like, this feels so much better to me than last week did. It worked like it was supposed to. Again, proof that spec-driven, design-driven is a better approach, going with a plan rather than vibe coding and talking too much. So, yeah.
I agree. Well, I know that we are at time. It was great having everybody so engaged. Hopefully we were able to provide you with lots of pieces of information, and you get to start coding with Q. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Absolutely. Next episode, next week, with Claire Laguori, I think is how you say her last name. She's one of the authors of the Strands blog. So principal engineer, amazing lady. That'll be next week. So see you then.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Right. Bye.